Hello, everybody. My name is Amber Daniels, and this is my older adult oral video presentation. The interviewee that I chose is named Miss D. Miss D is 72 years old, and she was born in 1946. Miss D is currently married. Miss D is the grandmother of 2 children, and Miss D resided in Chester County, Pennsylvania for most of her life, but now she resides in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She identifies as a Baptist religion. The stage that I chose for for the interview is stage 5, Identity versus Identity Confusion, age 12 through 18. I chose this stage because, according to Ms. D, this was the most important and impactful stage for her. During this stage, adolescents are learning about themselves and developing their sense of identity. Adolescents who are successful in this stage move on to closeness and relationships while keeping their identity intact. Adolescents that are unable to move beyond this stage have issues with identifying their own identities and are unable to establish intimacy. Dodder James 2018 theorized that parents have the ability to protect their children from the effects of personal and group race-based discrimination. The results: parents that provided nurture and warmth and acceptance help their children to combat oppression. This is important to Miss D because, as a child, the most hurtful thing that she dealt with was oppression. Miss D went to a school where there was predominantly 2% black and the rest of the population was white. Some important experiences that Miss D had. Miss D was a lead singer in an all-white band. Keeping in mind that she attended a predominantly white school, she was the leader of an all-white band. During our interview, she informed me that this was hurtful for her because she loved to sing, and she only wanted to sing in the talent show. When most of the participants found out that she was African American, they left the talent show because they could not understand why an African American woman, an African American child, was singing in an all-white band. She informed me during our interaction that she had a positive peer relationships with males and females. She also had some negative experiences with males and females. She suffered racism at the hands of her teachers, students, as well as her neighborhood. And she was raised in a highly religious household, which shaped most of her coping mechanisms and skills for her life. Challenges / accomplishment. An accomplishment is that Ms. D graduated despite the racism from her peers and teachers. Some of the things that she told me she heard was she could only be a homemaker and not a nurse, which is what she wanted to become. She was able to continue to be friends with her peers despite the discrimination that she faced. She had positive peer relationships and she had very good social skills. Most of her peers were positive. The parents were the ones who instilled the negative in their children that caused them to stop interacting with Miss D. Miss D had high self-esteem and self-regard. She created her own identity. She didn't have to fit into anybody's box because she had a high sense of self. Religion, which is very important according to her, was used as her coping mechanism. Through prayer, choir, peer relationships with other church members. Her positive peer interactions. Children who are socially acceptable and have positive interactions with peer groups do better academically. This has been theorized by Gallardo and Barraza. In this, Miss D had positive peer interactions, academic achievement, and was socially acceptable by many of her peers in school and in her neighborhood. With Miss D's high regard to achieve, she forged many relationships with people because they saw that she was not somebody that could be taken advantage of. This was taught to her, according to her, by her mother, because her mother believed that you can achieve anything you put your mind to, and nobody has the right to tell you that you can't. Psychosocial crises resolution, the crises. Some of the crises that Miss D had were identifying her identity despite her environment, forming positive peer groups and interactions. Small levels of racial discrimination can cause black children to have psychological issues in adulthood, as well as depressive symptoms. Miss D informed me that she did have some form of anger and resentment because she could not understand why people did not respect her as a person and not looking at the color of her skin. Biopsychosocial factors. Miss D grew up in a warm and nurturing environment. She grew up in a middle-class home with 2 working parents. In her home, food was always plentiful. She always had friends, families, gatherings, get-togethers. High self-esteem and self-confidence were very important to her family. She coped with problems through the interactions with her church and her family. Again, I cannot stress how important religion was to her. Throughout our interview, she reported that religion got her through many of her life's trials. Psychosocial crisis resolution. Some of the mechanisms that Ms. D used to cope with her life issues: singing. Singing was very important and used as a way to cope with discrimination and her problems. Singing was her way of showing the world who she is. Her ability to confide in her teacher at school. This shows that she was able to identify and seek out help as needed. When she felt as though she needed an ear to listen, she was able to go to her teacher, who was very helpful with her. Oppression caused her confusion and anger, but she was able to overcome due to her family, church, and school interactions. Oppression again during this stage was the most life-challenging issue that she had to deal with. Psychosocial crisis resolution using the systems theory. In her household, her parents, both parents, mother and father, set the boundaries and the rules for the household. The strict gender rules were set. In the home, the women cleaned, the women cooked, while her brothers tended to their homework and helped with taking out the trash and things of that nature. Her mother disciplined her while her father disciplined her brother. Discipline consisted of taking away TVs, taking away phones, access to outside. Those were some of the things that she informed me she was unable to complete. And also, she had respect for authority no matter what. Her mother instilled in her, even though she is being discriminated against, she should always respect authority. And then come and tell her when an authority figure has said something to hurt her or been disrespectful or discriminated against her. And her mother was the one who helped to talk to the teachers and to make sure that all her needs are met. I'm going to stop the video here and I'm going to finish this video in part 2.